Welcome back to our Creators X series with Vultr. Very excited for our next guest, Sajai. We are going to be talking not just AI and efficiency, we're also going to be talking about Instant Pot recipes and scuba diving. Welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Savannah. Thanks for having me.
You have kicked off the day in such a wonderful way. And I just want to talk about some of your personal hobbies before we dig into the nitty-gritty, because I was really fascinated. You do a lot of different things. So talk to me about how you leverage technology for some of your hobbies.
A couple of hobbies that I want to mention. So as Savannah had indicated, scuba diving and Instapot. As you can see, there's a technology thread through both of them. And, it's amazing as to what you can do. I can't claim to be a great cook, but with Instapots, you can't go wrong. So, right, absolutely. And scuba diving, I certified a long time ago, but in the last couple of years have been doing a lot of diving in Asia. So going to be going to Borneo, which is the very eastern part of Malaysia, in about a couple of weeks. So.
Wow, that's going to be fun. I can't wait to see photos of that. So if the relationship with Vultr was an Instapot recipe, what would be in the pot?
Wow. This would be Vultr GPUs.
Yes.
And Clarifai spices.
Oh, and what could the diner expect, or the guests at your dinner table expect as a result of that?
A very healthy usage of the ingredients, in this case, GPUs. That's what Clarifai does. We optimize the usage, the customer value that is derived from all the expenses around GPUs. So we help you get the most value from the spend that you have on GPUs. We've been doing this for about 10 years, so taking GPUs and squeezing the most performance out of it. So I think you can get the best curry by using Clarifai spices with Vultr GPUs.
I love that. So you're saying that the combination here is a healthy diet for those looking to have a balanced 2026. Look for Clarifai and for Vultr on your menu.
Absolutely. This is a lean dining experience.
Yes, it is. I love that. And who isn't looking for that in this day and age? You mentioned scuba diving, which I think is awesome. You're actually one of two scuba divers that we have on the show today, which
amazing.
Which I love. I love that we're getting to tell the human side of the people behind tech rather than just focusing on the speeds and feeds, because how else would we know this? So. Yes. One thing I always find, I live on the ocean, you're obviously an ocean lover, and one thing that I always find kind of mystifying is how little we know about the ocean. You know, I look out there, I think about all the fish swimming around, and then I think about how many scientists are trying to learn, but it's so vast and massive. Would you say that we're at a similar place in terms of our exploration of AI potential as we are to our exploration of the oceans?
You know, I actually think that our AI potential is even more nascent. With oceans, we do know a fair bit. I wouldn't like to say, if I had to put numbers, that would be tough, but a lot of life is close to land in the shallower parts of the sea. Once you get into the deep ocean, there's a lot unknown. But with AI, we are still really early. And we are still just waiting out. The waters are really shallow where we are at. And to think that we know what we could have, I think is presumptuous. So just waiting out a few feet, we are already enthralled by what we are seeing with AI. And I think that at 5 meters and 10 meters and 20 and 30 meters, there's a lot more of AI that we're going to see in the next 5 years.
I think you're absolutely right. You know, you just brought me back to that first time you put on a mask and goggles and you stick your head in the water and it just takes your breath away. You're never going to be the same, and yet you just want to keep exploring more. So what would you say to individuals or enterprises that are feeling a little bit nervous about putting their mask on for the first time?
When you put on your mask the first time, at least half the people are quite psyched. It's an unnatural. Humans weren't built to be underwater and wear masks and such. With AI, I think that's that same sort of unknown feeling and a little bit of a lack of control. So you are letting go of certain things, especially with intellectual work, process work, things you used to do. You are going to gain more value when you let go. and that loss of control is going to be hard. And at the same time, you also know that AI can make mistakes. Everyone knows it can make mistakes. Everyone knows that it can potentially hallucinate, exaggerate, etc. So you have to watch out for it. So knowing that you have to watch out for it just adds to the anxiety. So it is a very complicated transition, unlike, I'd say, a lot more complicated than many of the prior transitions in technology that we have been through.
I would agree with that. I think a lot of people draw parallels to the internet or to VMs or to a lot of different things, but it's more than that. It's an expansion in at high velocity in multiple directions.
Yes.
It's more than just compute as well. I mean, as I'm sure you know. So as you're helping these folks get excited to put on that mask and discover, what are some of the real world use cases that have you most excited about our technological future?
I'm going to use Gemini and Claude to do my taxes this time around. So, and I know you have to be careful with your private data and so on and so forth.
Yeah, this is brave. I'm really excited. Tell me more.
Before you go to TurboTax or before you go to your accountant, you have to collect a whole bunch of stuff. And although people like to say, yeah, I gave a box of receipts to my accountant no longer wants a box of receipts from me. He or she is expecting a nice Excel spreadsheet with your income and expenses and your various investments and so on. So I'm hoping that I can get AI to help me through this process where, all these bits and pieces and PDFs and so on and so forth, turn it all into a nice spreadsheet for me. So
yes, I love that. That you just brought up something I think is really important. People talk about productivity and efficiency all the time with AI, but it's also about kind of tidying up our mess. We all have little bits and bobs all over, especially with text. You're really speaking my language as a business owner right now. I get a little stressed and always dedicate a few days a year just to making sure I do that right.
A few days a year.
A few days. I genuinely take at least 2 days that I set aside. I know. And think about what we could do with those 2 days. I mean, you could be walking your lab on the beach. You could be hanging out with the fam. You could be doing a lot of different things that don't involve staring at a spreadsheet, looking at old business dinner calculations.
And by the way, all my travel planning has become 10x easier. So if I'm going to Borneo, how did I pick Borneo? By just asking LLMs, hey, I'm going in May. I want to see X, I typically like to see pelagic fish, larger fish. So I'm going to be Singapore. So within 4 hours flying time around Singapore, what are the places I could go to? That's how I picked up on Borneo at this time of the year. Because, scuba diving is very weather dependent. So your visibility changes with the rain and storms and so on. So if you're at the wrong time in the same wonderful place, you're not going to have as great an experience. So this was done in 30 minutes.
I think that's so great because you're not optimizing your travel determination time, right? You're gaining more time back on that, but you're able to look at so many different factors all at once. And I'm sure the tourism board of Borneo is excited that they have attracted you to come visit them through the nice things that people have said about Borneo this time of year.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite fish?
Oh, barracudas, different kinds of sharks.
Oh, barracudas are cool.
Yes.
Do you ever get scared in the water?
So far, no. But that's primarily because, I have stayed away from the deep south of the Maldives where you really see big sharks.
Right.
So a little bit chicken there, I guess. Maybe someday.
Yeah. Okay, bucket list. Where would you like to scuba dive, or what would you like to see scuba diving that you haven't seen yet?
I think hammerhead sharks, different kinds of sharks, squid, larger squid.
Ooh, I would love to see one of those. Those are super cool. Okay, last question for you, Sajai. This is a really good start to the day. If you were to give someone advice who is, let's say it's an individual of any age who's just starting to tinker around, maybe just starting to prompt AI, but they really want to make sure that they're not left out of building and creating this time around, what's your advice to them?
In your personal life, if you're not using AI 5 times a day or 10 times a day, anytime you have a question about something, just go to AI first. Go to your Gemini or your favorite LLM, large language model, and ask it that question. Learning is really available to everyone at this point. Sometimes people are careful about asking embarrassing questions and stop their learning because they don't want to ask and seem less knowledgeable. AI is your friend. There is no stupid question. Ask away and learn. Just dive in.
That is such a great. That is such a great point. I mean, you don't have to be nervous in class raising your hand anymore, and you can really go down the nerdy rabbit hole that you want to.
Yeah.
Sajai, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Savannah, for having me. It was fun.
This was fun.
Yeah.
We'll have to get a little Instapot going on next time and include some videos of your trip from Borneo in our next interview. Say hi to the lab for me.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Savannah.
Yes. And thank all of you for tuning in to our Creators X series here with Vultr, where we're putting the human in tech. Thanks for coming to learn with us.